Hello everyone and welcome back to the SteemTrail Gaming News. Today is the 23rd of March of 2018. My name is Kralizec and I will be your host for the evening. Today we got 3 stories for you guys. First we're going to take a look at the fact that the Arma 3 DLC named Laws of War made almost $200,000 worth of for the Red Cross. Then we're going to take a look at a little bit of economics, as it seems that the top 100 games on Steam have made over 50% of the revenue. And last of all, we're going to talk about the Warframe documentary and the fact that apparently they removed one specific type of microtransaction just because one guy spent way too much money on it. But let's begin with the Arma 3. So if you don't know, Arma 3 is one of the most realistic military simulators on the market. It's from a Czech studio and I'm quite fond of the game, and there was actually a pretty big controversy with 2 of the developers being arrested for espionage, in Greece. But that's not what we're going to talk about here today. So they have a DLC called Laws of War, which is quite different from most military simulators DLCs. It doesn't add weapons, it doesn't add things like that. It makes you a member of NGO. If you don't know what NGO is, it's a group that clears mines from former war zones. Essentially, it's, normally military simulators are for the fans of war who like guns, who like to be as realistic as possible in how they actually play these sort of games. But we should never actually stop remembering the fact that war is freaking bad. It's like, yeah, it is. Who would have guessed? War is bad. People die. Yeah, who would have fucking guessed? So, it was also used to gather funds for the International Committee of the Red Cross. If you don't know what the Red Cross is, take a look at any sort of thing that has anything to do with health. There's usually a Red Cross on it. Yeah. At least in the Western world. So they donated almost $200,000 to this committee. More specifically, they donated $176,667. This is not the biggest chunk of money. Obviously, they're going to have donors that just, yeah, here, have $50 million, enjoy. But for a single development studio, it's a quite large chunk of money, and it's good that we see gaming companies applying themselves in charity. And for the genre Arma 3 is representing, this is the ideal way to do it. Not only did they actually give money to charity, but they also taught people that war has repercussions that follow even after the war. And that is an important lesson to teach. I do honestly believe that. Okay, let's move on from Arma 3 on to economics. And I know it's economics, probably half of you hate them, the other half loves them. This is just a little bit of a quick look at what the average revenues for, no, not average, what the revenues were based off information we got from Steam Spy. And I don't think it's that surprising, but the top 100 games made 50% of the total money that was made in 2017. That's 0.5% of the games. If you don't remember, it was maybe a month or 2 back where we talked about the total number of games released in 2017. The number was 7,696 games. The top 100% of them made over 50% of the revenue. And it's really not that surprising. It's this sort of distribution scale. I think the first time I heard being talked about is was by Dr. Jordan Peterson. If you don't know him, he's a psychologist, somewhat a controversial figure, but that doesn't really matter right now. What was the name of the scale? I don't remember. I'm sorry, I really don't. But essentially the scale shows that the more you have, the easier it is to make more. And it doesn't matter what it's in money, it doesn't matter what it's in mass. So let's take, so that's why there's super rich people, because they have so much money that it is so much easier for them to make even more much money. I know more much money isn't a word, but you know what I'm saying. And when it comes to like mass, black holes have so much freaking mass that our entire solar system doesn't compare. The same way our sun has the vast majority of mass in our solar system, just because it's big, it was capable of attracting more mass into it. And this obviously applies to revenue from gaming as well. Yeah, it's just pretty obvious. One of the biggest one that made the most money was PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which made over $600 million. That's 5 times more than the second place Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which made just $120 million. That is Grand Theft Auto, then it's Call of Duty, Sid Meier's Civilization, then Wild Hunt, and it sort of goes on. And there are really no big surprises for me in here. If I just take a quick look at it, I would guess the fact that Rocket League is at number 18 after years since it's been released. When was Rocket League released? I don't remember. 2015. Yeah, that's almost 3 years and it's still on the top position there. It's at number 18 with $23 million. Also, Dark Souls 3 is sort of surprising with $24 million on the Play 17. And the rest are just big ass titles that sold a lot of copies, made a decent amount of money. Yeah, it's no surprise. If you're interested, you can find these articles just very easily. Just Google GameSpy revenue stats 2017. You will very quickly find it, and you can just dig through it, try to figure out what sort of things gamers want right now and make a game based off that if you are a developer. But otherwise, these stats just aren't surprising. They're really interesting to take a look at, but if you have any idea about how economics works, yeah, they're fairly obvious. And now on to our last piece of news. This one is about Warframe, the massively successful online raiding game, I guess I'd call it. It's an action game. And Warframe is praised for having one of the best microtransaction models in the gaming industry as a whole. For a free-to-play game, obviously. And recently there was sort of a documentary published. There's a link attached in the Steemit article. So if you want, you can easily watch it there. Let me quickly add a link actually to the YouTube video description. Okay, it should be right there right now. So if you want, you can actually watch it there as well. And the interview was hosted by NoClip, which is a documentary series by Daniel O'Dwyer. And one of the studio developers named Sheldon Carter was talking a little bit about how they added... You know what? I actually have a video prepared for you guys, so let's actually watch the video. It's about a minute long, so it really isn't that long, so don't be bothered. Let me quickly mute my microphone so you don't hear an echo. Okay, so God damn it, give me a second. It seems there's some sort of issue with not picking up the sound. So let me quickly switch to these. Will it work? So yeah, it will work. So let's rewind the video. Go back to the video. Let's watch it for
When we first designed Kubro's, or myself, when I first came up with the Kubro idea, we wanted people to be able to change the fur pattern and colors. So we had a lever, basically, for all intents and purposes. It was a button you could push and it'd be like, oh, if you want to pay, I can't remember what it was, so much platinum, you can change the color. And then you could, you could take an imprint of that and you could trade it to someone else. So it wasn't, like, we're trying to give you a way to, like, you could get something cool and then you could give it to your friends. And we saw, a guy pulled the lever like 200 times. And it's just like, oh my dear God, what have we done? We've made, we've created a slot machine.
Right.
And so, it was a couple days. I think it took us to take it out, a day and a half. That one is a big regret. Obviously that was insanely profitable for someone to be doing that, but that's not what our design intent, and that's not what the intent of the game is. So that's why it was, that's why we changed it. When you're dealing with something that does have a kind of a cash component, you have to really be careful. Like, of course that would be cool in a game where there was none of that, where you were just, putting in earned money into it. But as soon as you put it as a premium currency and people can just go, oh, what can I get? Oh, I got the gold one. Amazing. How much can I sell that to other people for? And you're like, oh God, can't do that. When we first...
Warframe is actually an ethical studio. I'm sorry for technical stuff. I'm not really good with the scenes, so I still make mistakes, and I admit that. But you can really see how much Warframe cares about being ethical and not just creating systems to make money if they are potentially abusable and if they will lead essentially to gambling. And he described the system very well. It was essentially a slot machine, similarly to how loot boxes are essentially slot machines, because you open one and you get random stuff. Sometimes it's good stuff, sometimes it's bad stuff. And we all know that. We mostly acknowledge that. And I've talked about this a few times in the past, but I'm very, very happy to see that some developers do realize that this is a problem that needs to be prevented at their level, ideally. Because I don't think we will ever see a point in the industry where loot boxes just go away magically. The most probable scenario right now, in my opinion, is that they will get regulated on some level, usually by the states. Right now, the controversy has gone somewhat silent, with Republicans just bulging in with their claims that video games cause violence, and that sort of suppressed the discussion that was actually happening about whether loot boxes are fine. But in the end, it would be ideal if studios just realize that certain systems, certain monetization systems, are just wrong ethically. Obviously, they're great if you're just looking for pure profit, and that's why they did implement it, especially by big-ass corporations, because their ethics usually just don't play a role. Let's be honest. These corporations are there to make money, and nobody's blaming them for that. It's their point, to make money for the shareholders. But especially the smaller studios, I think, do have somewhat of a social responsibility to show that there is another way, that the way can be profitable as well, and hopefully teach players to want that ethical way, because otherwise we will just end up with a shitstorm where the government will have to take a step in. And if there is a way to avoid the government stepping into any industry in any sort of way, I think that is a good thing to do. And with that being said, that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving us a thumbs up here on YouTube and subscribing to the channel. If you're watching on Steam, maybe you want to give us an upvote and follow the blog. Leave a comment. Would you buy the ARMS DLC? Do you think it's bad that only 100 games make up the vast majority of the revenue shared by all games? And do you think Warframe has a fair monetization model? Those are the questions I want you to answer. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for more gaming news, as we are your source of daily gaming news every single day. See you guys later with more gaming content.